I think we totally forgot to say the date and that we were doing the page.
Yeah, it's true. So we just did the Ezzy page, World 27 Guardian 2, page 3, and today is June
16th, 2020.
Yeah. And now we're going to talk about
Kind of a mission statement.
what our mission is.
Talked about it on the LV walk. And yeah.
So, main points.
Yeah. It was like a threefold thingy.
Yeah, and we've talked about other things too.
Yeah.
See what comes up. But one main point on the walk was when people watch things, whatever kind of stories, or see visual images of, like, if they see like a dwarf, then odds are they're gonna imagine him like killing animals or
Fighting a boar with an axe or
being violent or unwholesome in whatever way.
probably the most wholesome it ever gets would be like they're a blacksmith to make the axe to fight the boar.
Yeah. So how the biggest shift is really when you can look at something and instead of the conditioning of assuming it's probably a lesser thing, it's focused on just kind of unwholesome things, to actually think that it's a good thing. And you can kind of see it in slice of life images and stuff, but when you put on a filter of like, this is a tech slice of life or this is a fantasy slice of life or whatever, then usually any kind of those filters, the automatic thing, because there's just so much content out there that shows this, is to think it's gotta have violence or it's just gotta have, be some like really drama filled thing, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's pretty much like guaranteed that if you see someone like somebody's made a painting or like cool piece of art and it's like someone in some kind of ninja looking spacesuit, the immediate idea is usually this is like some kind of assassin or it's some kind of like spacesuit to go in space and shoot lasers at people or something like that. And instead of just being like, this is the spacesuit that's necessary to garden on this planet, or this is like to go into space or underwater and like just explore something or anything like that.
Just the daily life of that world, instead of which I was thinking, like, someone like Norman Rockwell, he in his imagery created like this idealized like America, right? And it's like, or the Miyazaki creating like that specific like essence of the good that they show, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like where the aim is to
almost to broaden that,
create that so much in all these different ways, but it'll have its unique flavor that's like more than just a slice of life, but like a slice of world.
Yeah.
A way that the thing is, it's the image and the essence of that is creating this theme that then you can then carry that theme with you and then see other things and see it kind of, possibly this boar I'm looking at is actually the wisest thing I've ever seen, wisest creature ever, and talks like an LV character.
Another way to put all this is probably like right now if you saw an image of or just like the most common image out there more than anything else is probably like on any kind of art, media, anything, it's like some knight or demon or something with a sword and fighting something, or it's like some hot chick with a dagger, or it's like some kind of form of violence, like some soldier fighting a dragon and anything like that. And it's so ingrained into every form of media that when you see something like that now, you kind of just have a vibe or like an understanding of what world it would be in. Like you see a dragon breathing fire or something, it's just that's been in every game and movie and book and everything to such a point that seeing it, it doesn't work for mind.
It's not new.
It doesn't work. Like there's no creative thing that it sparks anymore because it's everywhere. And when you see a dwarf with an axe, it's like you kind of can guess one of the many types of worlds and whatever. Like if somebody is like to tell you about the world that this dwarf is from, you would kind of get it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, I saw the dwarf and he fits into
like
all of these different things.
He drinks and he is gold and all these, kind of tropes
Yeah.
that are just there already. I think we were talking, I didn't say this on the walk earlier, but something like, it basically is the same thing. Like when we get into Mixmaster's characters, they're so weird, like Arto Tenno or something. It's like, to make that image is interesting because it requires all the invention of what that world specifically is, and does the image make sense with like what you're seeing, what's happening, and is it shown that even if it's so weird and even creepy or whatever, it's not harmful.
Yeah.
Right. And then we have all these human characters to do that with too, and kind of set the tone of that with somehow, the metaphors of that.
I think a good example of that is that like how it's so much easier to do something like a knight, like some hot chick in a big sword and shield and big knight armor fighting some kind of dragon, because you can invent any kind of wicked cool sword, no matter how nonsensical or like practical or anything, some kind of grotesque dragon and like so many variations of it, whatever, and like all these different action poses and all this stuff, and it's easy to come up with that. It's like you can kind of do whatever you want, but to do something that's more grounded in something that's like some lady trying out cooking tools in her kitchen to make a pizza, but you've invented the kitchen and you've invented the cooking tools and you've invented the food she's making and all that. That's so nuanced and bizarre, and like it's not just some abstract thing. It doesn't matter how big the claws of the dragon are.
Psychedelic shapes that don't mean anything or something.
Yeah, but like examples would be like just the claws of a dragon. Like you can make them any size you want on that beast. You can make the teeth any size, eyes, colors, everything about it can be anything, and it doesn't matter. But if you're to ground something in just how things work, she needs to have a spatula that actually fits in whatever oven thing she's working in. Mm-hmm. You need to, like, all this stuff has to be proper.
It's like doing Norman Rockwell stuff, but then it's not just using what context is from real life America.
Yeah.
But
just as much as you're inventing a cool sword, you're
having
kitchen.
that same tone of just the subtle daily life stuff and showing it really awesome, and then having all that, those worlds over top of it, overscapes.
Some of the things we were referring to is like specifically with the treasure tales we've done so far, it's like if you see Annabelle and she's like stretching on the edge of a platform and there's like a double-decker bus coming up to it, the first thought for most people, if they ever see some space age laser beamy thing with pallets and like cool, they look like they're floating in the air and there's some big block, the first thoughts would be like, this is a military compound,
single
whatever
space age movie. It's either a parody or it's like some violent action thriller.
Like the first thoughts will just be straight up, this is like a military operation to fight aliens or something dumb,
some
like
very
that.
Intellectual like thing, which often has violence in it.
Yeah. So the mission statement is like, so when people look at an image of somebody in a lasery suit in some tech space age thingy, that there's a possibility that they'll think of something that isn't violent.
Yeah, we're not going to get rid of that conditioning of them, but we're going to be introducing a new space for them to be able to have that awareness.
We basically want to introduce context to such a degree that it's even a possibility that the person thinks of something else when they see it. And just like diverse enough context for them to have context to actually think of. Because right now, if they can't think of anything else because there's no context in the world for them to even consider anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's a main point for sure.
Yeah.
I'd say like just showing also like what real behind the scenes can be like, or what the actual creative process of like working on something that is happening and also like there's stuff where people create things, but more so that like real depth of brainstorming or and a long project too, not just a 1 minute or a
Yeah.
1 day thing or something.
I made a video game in 3 months.
Yeah.
An app or something. Yeah.
I think that's part of something we've talked about before.
One of the things we were talking about today, it was kind of like a joke, but kind of brought up the mission statement topic. Was like how to something cool, something that's like memey, and something real.
Yeah.
Something that's you're referring to
That there's things that do have good messages, but then they end up memey, where it just becomes a meme and people forget what the story is actually about because that's not real enough. It's not profound enough to actually like get beyond the memes. So for us, we're making stuff that is meme worthy, but the importance and what the way it's done though is that it won't, it's not I don't know, slack-jawed enough to for someone just to stick with the memes and forget what the essence and the truth of the stories are.
Yeah, the meme is like the right. This is just funny and like people. It's just life.
Like
It's
Karate
just
Kid,
life. Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
It's just like this is fun in life, and then the cool is like the crazy setting, crazy inventive stuff to get people like thinking. Oh, the mystery. Like you see some lady with making weird stuff in a weird kitchen where it leaves so much open to mystery. Unlike if you see a knight fighting a dragon or something. It's just it allows you to creatively explore this world. Or like inquires things. That's like makes you inquisitive. So we have like the memes that are just like, yeah, this is it's funny. It's just like all other stories. It's this cool little spark of entertainment, and then a thing that's like gets you thinking, and then a thing that's real, because that's the only stuff that will ever actually stick with someone in any significant way, any way that makes a difference or change in them or in the world at all. So yeah, to have that like threefold passage.
Mm-hmm. I guess I think one way we might find things for the mission statement is just talk about all the things we're doing that are great.
Yeah, we've talked about so much stuff
Yeah.
over the years of just like why we're doing very specifically what we're doing.
Yeah.
Things like the medium of treasure tales and why we're doing treasure tales at all. So it's like leaving a lot of space open to the reader to interpret things and go at their own pace repeatedly in any way, in any direction. Like you have to read it chronologically and just read like sentences off it and look at different pictures off it all over the place, and just like whenever, however long you want and whenever you want and as many times as you want.
That's makes me so good. I was thinking of like, all comic books or whatever, like Nausicaa or something. It's like, you can open Nausicaa and you just, you're on some random plot point of the story and you could read it randomly, but like, it's not designed for that.
Yeah. There's nothing.
But like Treasure Tale would be so designed perfectly just to dip into and like look at little
It's
part.
the ultimate medium. It really is. It's just so high level, super advanced. It's something. It's like just a little beyond where we are as people to understand how to use art.
I mean, it's a story like I don't know who's all interested in that, but like when I imagine that it'd be so great just to have like that epic story to just do that with, have on my wall or glance at and soak in little bits in different times. And
Just some of the symbols. You walk down a street and on the wall of a building there's just a treasure tale. Like it's just a single page story, a mix of words and pictures that are like show cool things. Something funny on there to lighten up a day, something really cool that gets you thinking of like, that's a neat idea, and something to read that just makes you go, yeah, if I did that, if I do this a little better today, I'll be a little better today than I was yesterday.
It's like what Jeff was saying with like art, putting it out there, and someone being like maybe seeing it and going, having it shift them from perhaps derailing in some form to having some kind of awareness of beauty
and obviously most art in the world so far isn't really that way. Stories and all that.
Yeah.
The stories are the best way of doing it. The art doesn't go into stories the way it must, and stories aren't suited for good art, and then so we have this like not very good stuff to blend and not a very good blend of the stuff. So what we're trying to do is make good stuff with both the storytelling and the artistry, and then blend it really well too.
Yeah. Another part would be just making a story that we would enjoy, years from now.
To make the stuff that, if I was growing up in the world, fresh, this is the kind of stuff that I would want to find and interact with more than anything else.
Right.
And unlimitedly too, or like timelessly. Like to not do anything that's of the world to the degree where when the world moves over even the course of a decade, like most stuff, it just becomes
obsolete.
Obsolete, like pointless. Time, it's outdated.
Yeah.
Within a couple decades of just like, why would I ever bother watching this random thing of just unfounded hate and violence and confusion and like very of the times problems and stupidity and whatever. Like once people get a little smarter, then where do you go? And if you're growing up in a world and content is there that no matter how smart you get, you're still enjoying it, you're still gaining something from it, you're still finding it interesting, why do anything else? And right now, if somebody grows up in this world, they don't even have the option of finding that stuff because it's just not there to enough of a degree.
Yeah, certainly that aspect of this stuff not existing in the context of this world at all is another part of it. It's like, like Land of Valley Studios doesn't release a story that exists within the content of this world. Right.
Life is art that lacks artists is all. Just trying to get some context. I guess a random side topic that I mentioned briefly was how a person only needs like one page of a treasure tale, really. You just need one, or like one story of a single guardian. That would be fine. That would be enough. Like you don't need more. And we just need enough that every kind of person, no matter where they are, can stumble into something. Like if somebody's really into like sci-fi, that's there. Like otherwise, if somebody likes sci-fi, there's no possibility of them ever stumbling into something interesting or decent
right.
in sci-fi. Then we need a thing in sci-fi.
Yeah.
Somebody's like really into like elements and qualities and like sensations and like movement, and we don't have anything about that. We need something in there, so we do it. And like all these different aspects have to be covered, and covered in such a way that if somebody finds Lantern Valley Studios or just Treasure Tales or just like this type of thing at all, that one of the many things among them is going to be that one thing that is enough forever, or for any significant amount of time until they like a lot of changes take place, a lot of growth happens, a lot of interesting stuff sparks them into wanting to like live in different ways, whatever it is, and then they start to find other things, whether it's more treasure tales or like something else that's good that exists at the time.
I think another part of that is the kind of like there's the Goenkas and the Krishnamurtis and all that, and we're like creating 30 different ones, like heroes or tales, and
redefining hero and warrior.
redefining hero, redefining story structure,
redefining what a character arc is.
Also making it so like people have an option or a understanding that it's possible to live in a world where things that, like a character arc happening that goes from being violent to good, doesn't have to be that, because it can be just good to good. And that things like a redemption arc would seem so weird and out of place and wouldn't actually make sense.
Yeah.
And they just like laugh at that because it's like a silly idea. To create stories where that kind of thinking would possibly would be able to happen at all.
Like just the concept that somebody could need redeeming should be an unfathomable thing to a human, but we're just like so far away from that. And to write a world where that is the case, then just might spark something.
Click a wave.
Stories can actually exist this way.
Something else.
People can actually exist this way. There's another way.
I think just to take things so far in directions to like fantasy, not just filter with the normal kind of fantasy you see, but go as far with that as possible. Reach, new creative springs of what those things are defined as, and redefine them.
Yeah, for how infinitely vast and complex and dynamic and like infinite the possibilities are for anything, like a setting, and how unsaturated it is, how shallow it's been explored, just like the ideas of how people could live, to break all of those boundaries or just stretch it as far as we can while still being in like somewhat familiar territory. Because obviously if you just start writing a world that's like about Buddha's time, when like everyone had psychic powers and could see phenomenon and like other planes of existence and stuff, even though that's like within the faculties of a human maybe to some degree, to just write that kind of setting might be a bit complicated and a bit confusing. But if you do things that are leaning those directions,
that's why we're leading up to Lantern Valley. So.
Yeah. Well, I was leading up to these 30 mixed masters worlds that aren't even like humans, that have these kind of processes and stuff. So yeah, to push things in like really bizarre directions like that, like what are these mythological worlds of like, interplanetary something rathers and just all the crazy stuff, like what if trees were the size of mountains, and just to really explore what that would be like, because it's never really been explored.
Those unfathomable.
We're forest elves, and it's like, why is your forest barely bigger than what our forest was like 200 years ago? And it's like, how is this stuff so just not explored at all? Yeah. To reach into the unfathomable and make it fathomable.
Yeah. And also, I think to explore all the different elements of what stories can be when they are wholesome, from what humor can be in like a more aware, like in a very deep way, and all these different ways that
layered
things can be expressed or
the kind of
depicted.
Stuff, yeah. Almost the kind of stuff that you wouldn't even know if it's funny until you like read it a few times, and then you suddenly get it.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like
probably so much
real funny.
Yeah.
Like deep funny. And all on any other aspect that's like it's within what making a story like that is, and explore all that, because that hasn't been explored at all.
And of course, the unraveling of how all this stuff is done with better and better behind the scenes, how we come up with these things.
Yeah.
And I suppose that goes into like living well and just the basic things that come with living well to make stories that are like the places that we want to be worthy enough as people, or like functional enough as people, that if we were in there we would fit in some way. Like that we can operate at a level where, like, if we were in any of these worlds we could operate,
and therefore reminding the reader to live that way, or live well, is very much being the essence of the message. Live well and enjoy exploring in like infinite stuff. Yeah, covered some things there for sure. To have redefine what meditation is, or what, like,
take words back.
Yeah, use and frame words in their proper context,
right,
within a story.
Yeah. I suppose it's almost like one of the, well, two things there is, like, one is the we're making a language so that this stuff can be discussed at all, because right now it's completely lacking. Like, we don't have the framework and the foundation linguistically to even describe or discuss the many, like, just the aspects of the mind on very surface levels. And then and, like, not the shallow, convoluted way of, like, just intellectual psychology and all this other stuff, but the real way, like, go into all the way that the cause and effect and energy and consciousness actually operates, and to build any kind of language around that, so you can actually not so much like describe anything, but even converse about it, and have stories or context to reference regarding that, instead of having the mental flips of a show being like, great redemption arc, we have a great something else arc, like a character coming to terms with they try too hard to do certain things or whatever. Like, why do we not have a word for this, but we have a word for redemption? We have a word for honor and loyalty and all these other traits, but we don't have the traits of this person is
subtler traits.
Yeah, disciplined in the very specific way of something. Like, we don't have words for any of this stuff, so to build that context is one, and then the other is to bring that kind of the Goenka, Krishnamurti, whatever it is, the standard spiritual talk, not monotone, but like
self-help book guide.
And the world needs healing and all this other stuff, and all the places that you can go for this kind of like spiritual revolution or practices to be mindful and all this other stuff, and turn it away from being called anything like self-help or whatever, or just like this,
not put it in a box,
this static dead thing,
take it out of the box,
and be like, this is just life, it's a movement, it's an activity, like, it's full action, just spontaneous explosion of life, and this is what it looks like. Because we don't have any examples of what that looks like.
Do in a box as part of your life.
You don't go to this thing to get something. like
Yeah.
what if a person goes to every single one of those courses and classes and talks and whatever and gathers it all up, and then they have it all, then what? And then it's like, if they figured it all out, then what happens? And we don't have anything.
What
that
would
points to
they
it.
enjoy reading at that point?
Yeah, like what would life be like if suddenly we got it all and we don't need any of this anymore? What does this actually look like in action? And right now there's literally zero stories where this is the case, and we just gotta spam them up so people can actually can finally take that and be like, oh, this is what living better looks like. No wonder I was so confused of trying to take this thing that I learned and apply it to my regular boxed habits and patterns and corrupted structure of life.
Camper died, but and the fullness of the interwovenness of this and how it's all one story. Like it's not. There's no division. There's no. You can take this part out and it's still the same story, or whatever, or all the little categories of this character and this character, and then their stories are solo, and you can kind of just forget about other things or whatever. It's all contained here.
It's super freeform.
Yeah.
And it's super precise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.